Is that Assistant Commissioner Chapman, in which case, is it appropriate for her to be here while we give these brief reasons? Would you prefer that she is not?
It might be preferable, given the position we found ourselves in before, that we don't.
Sorry, Assistant Commissioner, if you give us 5 minutes, we've just got a procedural matter that arose before lunch and we'll just deal with that, and then I'd invite you to come in.
Oh, yes, of course. So sorry. That's fine. I guess to preface what I'm saying is, I understand that we're all in this process and it's in everyone's interest that we get to the truth of what happened, and that there's value in exploring things and making sure that any issue that needs to be ventilated is ventilated. And we're coming at it from this perspective, and we also recognise that for everyone involved, it comes with its own stresses and difficulties. And so what I'm saying in my application earlier isn't intended to be critical of anyone for anything, because we're all trying in sometimes difficult circumstances. The real nub of the concern for my client is, I want to say the surprising, but I don't intend any sting by that, way that the questions have developed by reference to what police could or should have done when they arrived at the scene. Because our understanding of the Supreme Court judgment is that Miss Lucina was unfortunately deceased by 7:20 p.m. And so a large amount of questions have been put to witnesses on the basis that there are sounds that could have been observed, that there's a man that could have been observed, that there should have been more inspection of the parking lot. And that to us, and I'm not suggesting deliberately or intentionally or anything like that, comes out of nowhere to us. And why I want the investigation material is because there seems to be a case being developed that these steps could or would have made a difference to the result that is actually important, which is Miss Lucina's death. And why we have an interest in that material is if that case is being developed, we say contrary to Justice Rothman's judgment, then we will need access to information that is outside our record, like the medical evidence of what happened, any discussions that have been...
Perhaps I can bring this to a fairly neat conclusion on that point then. This commission is not about to traverse Justice Rothman's judgment. I think, as I said in my opening remarks, that's not our job. It's also very clearly not our role to consider manner and cause of death. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Sullivan, but at the moment I'm not suggesting that the actions of any of these officers would have prevented Ms. Lucina's death. That's speculative. We don't have medical evidence in front of us and we're not proposing to tender any.
That's precisely the position, Commissioner, and nor is there a case being developed. This is an investigation where there isn't a case theory, as it were. There's simply an exploration of the evidence.
Yes.
So that it is perhaps a case study of opportunities for reflection, any systemic issues that may have occurred, and clearly if there was a failure to perform one's duties as a police officer, whether or not that failure might have prevented a death or simply have been on its own an independent failure to perform one's duties as a police officer, that's obviously something this Commission's going to have to consider.
Yes, but that distinction is not made in questions often. For example, it was put to one witness that maybe what happened could be a case study for new recruits in terms of how they search for things. Now that question clearly implies that where you have a case study about a woman who died, that a better search may have prevented the outcome. And I know it's not explicitly said, but that's the clear import of the question.
Commissioner, that is a function of the reflections, not least from Officer C. It is important to take learning so that these events are not in vain. And I have been very clear in the questions about what I have suggested to particular officers might be appropriate steps to have taken. It's very plain that there are concerns about the adequacy of that search for obvious reasons, And that was those were the matters that were put particularly to Superintendent Tanner, given his extensive experience, and we were assisted by his answers in relation to that matter.
Well, I don't understand.
So, Mr. Smart, is there anything else that you wanted to raise? Because I think I understand the point that you're making now. I'd like to make the decision and move on. So was there any other points that you wanted to make?
Well, Ms Sullivan, with respect, just put it's for obvious reasons that we need to be concerned with this. And for obvious reasons can only be taken as a suggestion that what police could have done or should have done could have made a difference. And that takes us back to my application, which is if that suggestion is being made, then we're going to need information that the Commission has access to in order to contradict that suggestion. So that's my application.
So perhaps I can make it clear in giving my decision on your application, which I note was joined by Mr. Gollum. These examinations are not court proceedings. It's an investigation. It's an investigation being conducted under Part 6. Mr. Smith.
Sorry, I'm standing out of respect rather than...
Oh, I thought you had something else to say. You're welcome to sit down, Mr. Smart. They're not criminal proceedings. There's no obligation of disclosure as there is with a prosecutor. They're not coronial proceedings where a brief's been prepared. And I presume that council are familiar with a similar equivalent jurisdiction such as ICAC, where matters unfold and for appropriate reasons there may be decisions made not to disclose it. In fact, ordinarily decisions are made not to disclose material to witnesses in advance. Sometimes, as here, material has been provided to witnesses in order to allow them to refresh their memory or to focus their mind or to make the hearings more efficient. That much is clear in Part 6 of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act. The Commission has a range of powers under Part 6. That includes the powers to require documents, it includes the powers to require information, it includes but does not require that the Commission uses examinations as part of its investigative functions. And I think the other aspect of the Commission's functions is looking not only at potential misconduct or agency maladministration, because we don't want to exclude that as a possibility should that arise on the evidence, but fundamentally it is about what happened on this occasion and should things have happened differently, and what are the opportunities for improvement, and are there any systems issues in relation to the operation of the police force, which they may already be aware of, might I add, such as understaffing and resourcing, which could have made a difference in this instance had things gone separately. I'm very aware of the importance of not exercising a hindsight bias or casting that backwards shadow on the actions of operational police at the time in order to suggest that that they didn't do the appropriate job because we now know what the outcome of that 000 call was. That's something that I'm acutely aware of. As you would well know, the rules of evidence don't apply. It's to be conducted with as little formality and technicality. As part of its investigation, and again, I emphasise this is an investigation, the Commission's obtained a range of materials, but not all of those materials will be relevant to the questions that are being put to any of the witnesses. Where they will be tendered into evidence, and as I said at the outset, the exhibits will be provided to council. Now, I appreciate it can be difficult when they come up on the screen, and so I've taken your application as including, but not limited to, an application for prompt access to the exhibits, and those arrangements have been made by those assisting me. You raised also, Mr. Smart, I don't propose, perhaps I can make that express, to provide in advance the investigation materials or a portion of the investigation materials that the Commission has relied on. That's not part of the practice of this Commission, but more to the point, that's not part of the practice of the way in which an investigation is being conducted. But where something is tendered and relied on by this Commission, it will be tendered into evidence, it will become an exhibit, and you'll be entitled to have a copy of it. Issues of procedural fairness are important. but they're less important in an investigatory process as they are in the process by which a conclusion is reached. You'll have heard counsel assisting during the course of the examinations today put to witnesses propositions that might arise from other material that the Commission has, and that's an important part of the procedural fairness process. If you should wish to tender other documents, that arrangement's already been made by counsel who have appeared for other witnesses in this matter. So if there's other material you think we need, you can provide it to us and we'll arrange for it to be uploaded. The tabbing and the barcode is a procedural matter that just makes it easy for our monitors to find the relevant documents and put it up on the screen for people. Obviously, and as I think has already been foreshadowed, there'll be an arrangement for written submissions to be made, so you will have the written submissions of counsel assisting and an opportunity to respond to them, and that will be the formal process where procedural fairness will be accorded in relation to any particular matters that arise and any particular potential adverse findings or recommendations in which your clients are involved. So for that reason, the application for the so-called bench book, but which I will, not bench book, court book, which I will, is probably better framed as an application for the Commission's investigation brief, is refused, but we will make sure that prompt access to the exhibits is provided. Thank you.
Can I just move forward for a moment?
You can sit up the front there if you would rather, Mr. Gollum.
I've already camped.
Right.
I'm concerned that the reporter couldn't hear me. Can I foreshadow that at the close of the evidence from counsel assisting, that I will renew the application? It seems that the mischief is that witnesses aren't exposed to certain information, but so that we can form our own opinion about what amongst the materials is relevant. I foreshadow, and I will have relevant authorities that I've considered in previous proceedings, that once all of the oral evidence has been taken by the Commission, that the documentary material be available to the parties so that they can see whether or not they need contribute to the exhibit list by reference to some of the documents that have not been tendered. I don't mean in any way to cavil with your ruling. I understand the mischief that you're seeking to cure, but it's in light of that that I also just give forewarning, in fairness to everyone that's involved in the proceedings, the least of which yourself, that I will seek access to those materials before the evidence is closed. Now, you may be against me on it. We'll have that discussion on another occasion. But I just wanted to be courteous.
You can make that application in the future. If you've got a series of authorities that you'd like to refer to, you're welcome to make them available to the Commission to counsel assisting in advance. And can I suggest as well, Mr. Gollum, that you might want to articulate with care and precision what it is that you are actually seeking.
I understand that. I need to be in a position where the exhibit list is finished, as it were, on behalf of the Commission by counsel assist, for me to then have some optics. And I'm grateful. I've seen the email that was sent over lunch about having access to the exhibits. It was an application that I was going to make. And well,
it was actually offered at the outset.
I'm not being critical of anyone. I'm saying that I'm grateful for that. Okay. It'll give me an opportunity to look at it over the weekend, and I can see whether or not there's anything within that chain of inquiry that might expose a need to consider further materials.
Thank you. Well, we'll look forward to that application on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we might invite Ms. Chapman to return to the witness box if someone could please retrieve her. Thank you. Is that a clean glass for her? Could you just check? Okay, that's okay. Thank you.
Solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence that you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If so, please say I do.
Thank you. Have a seat. And Mr. Gollum, does your client seek an objection?
Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner. You become immune to it to some extent. Yes, she does.
Thank you. Ms Chapman, I understand that you wish to make an objection to the taking of evidence under Section 75 of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act, and as I've said to all of the other witnesses so far, that's a very sensible course of action. It's what people sitting in that chair almost always do. So I will make a declaration pursuant to Section 75 of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act that all answers and other things given by you will be regarded as having been given on objection. I'm sure Mr Gollan and those who instruct him have been through that with you, but I just have my own obligation to make sure that you understand what that means. It means that your answers can still be used against you in certain circumstances. If your evidence can still be used against you for proceedings under the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act, so it's still, you have an obligation to be truthful. Nonetheless, your evidence can be used for this investigation or to allow the Director of Public Prosecutions to provide us with advice. And it can be used against you in disciplinary proceedings, and I'm sure you're aware of the nature of disciplinary proceedings under the Police Act. I say this to all witnesses, it's not intended to frighten you, but it's Section 173, 181 capital D or 183 capital A of the Police Act. The other formality that I do need to go through is the scope and purpose of the examinations. This is the same as the scope and purpose that was attached to your summons, and it is to investigate the circumstances surrounding the police response to a 000 call made at 7:03 on the 3rd of January 2023, reporting that a woman was being bashed behind the Salvation Army building in Ballina. And the issues that the Commission is considering is the radio broadcast and dispatch of police in response to that 000 call, the response including the timing of New South Wales Police Force officers to that radio broadcast, the actions of police force officers when attending the location of the alleged assault, and the decision not to declare a critical incident in relation to the death of Lindy Lucina. Again, just for clarity, we'll be considering whether any conduct is or could be police misconduct, administrative officer misconduct, serious misconduct or agency maladministration, but we are also very much considering whether any systemic issues arise that could be areas for agency improvement. Thank you. Ms Sullivan.
Could I start with your name for the record?
Tracy Chapman.
And you're a superintendent?
Correct.
You're the current commander of Lake Macquarie Local Area Command, is that right?
Lake Macquarie Police District.
Thank you. And you've been in that role since November 2023?
Yes.
And prior to that, you were the commander of the Hunter Valley Police District from March 2021 to November 2023. Is
Yes.
that right? And you were tested from the academy in 95?
Yes.
Have you spent much time in GD's superintendent, in general duties?
Not a significant amount, no.
For a period in January 2023, you were an acting assistant commissioner serving in the role of acting Northern Region Commander, is that correct?
Yes.
What was that period that you're in the role?
From the 2nd of January. Could have been the 1st, sorry. Sunday, if Sunday was the 1st, it would have been the 1st of January for a period of 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I think there's a hand back to Assistant Commissioner McKenna on about the 15th of January. Does that sound right? Yeah. Thank you. What's the function of the Region Commander, just in general terms? Can you outline that for us, the mandate?
It's a whole range of things, but predominantly to oversee and oversight the policing operations across the Northern Region in this instance. The Northern Region covers from Gosford or Brisbane Water Police District through to Tweed Byron Police District, so there are 11 districts, and it's predominantly to oversee the functions of policing in that area.
Okay. And the Region Commander has a particular role or mandate in relation to critical incidents, is that right? Okay, we'll come to that aspect. You prepared 2 Section 54 responses for the purposes of these proceedings. If you would like a copy of your response, very happy for you to have it in front of you, if that would assist you. Do you have copies with you, your paper versions? We're happy.
I have, yes, I do.
So they could be brought to you.
Do you want to come up and approach? Bring it to Ms Chapman. It's always easier to have these documents in front of you.
But just for completeness, we'll also bring it up on the screen. Tab 87 is Superintendent Chapman's response of 15 November 2025. Which will come up on the screen as well, but you refer to whichever one you prefer. Right. So this is the response of 15 November 2025. You've no doubt had a chance to review that for these proceedings.
Yes.
Any corrections you would like to make?
No.
True and correct to the best of your knowledge, information and belief?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner,
Ms. Sullivan, I think that's 14.
14, thank you. 14 November. November, thank you. Grateful for that correction. I tender that response. Tab 87 commences at barcode 8605781 through to 8605827.
That will be Exhibit 25C.
And there was a further response, Superintendent, dated the 1st of December 2025, is that right?
Yes.
Commissioner, that's at tab 144, if we could bring that up for completeness. That commences at barcode 8647105 through to 8647116. Just wait for that to come up. Tab 144, you should be at 8647105.
That was the right document, I think we just started it.
At the back end. There it is. That response is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information and belief?
Yes.
Thank you. I tender that second response, Commissioner.
So the second response given under Section 54 of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act, first dated the 1st of December, under tab 144, will be Exhibit 26C.
And I might also, whilst we're dealing with materials, go to the document at tab 111. If we could bring this up, this is an internal police memorandum dated 26 June 2023. Just bring that up and show that to you. Do you have a hard copy of that memorandum? If you don't have it to hand, we'll just have it on the screen.
Of a memorandum?
Of a memorandum, an internal police memorandum.
Document I authored?
Yes?
Yes, I have a copy of that.
Okay.
Sorry, it's
No.
we don't call it a memorandum.
I'm sorry,
It's
I'm
all right.
confused.
I was confused. It was something. Yes, a Godfrey. Thank you.
Godfrey, this is what the terminology. Thank you. Just wait for that to come up. It's up now. So that is tab 111 at barcode 8607889 through to 8607899. And is that document, at least the first 2 pages of that Godfrey memorandum, is that, or Godfrey document, that's authored by you?
Yes.
Can I ask, Superintendent, did you see the back pages of that document?
No.
You only authored the first 2 pages and didn't otherwise see it? Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And that will be Exhibit 27C, but we are tendering the entirety of the document, is that right?
Yes,
Ms.
that's
Sullivan?
so. Thank you for completeness. All right, so can I ask you firstly about your experience with critical incidents? Have you ever been a senior critical incident investigator during your career? no doubt have close familiarity with the New South Wales Police Force critical incident guidelines.
Yes.
When did you first learn about those guidelines?
I would suggest in 2010.
Okay, in connection with what aspect of your role at that time?
So in 2010, I transferred to the Northern Region office.
Yes.
At that point in time, I was an inspector and the HR manager for the region. As part of my role as the HR manager, like all the other inspectors in the region office, I was on call approximately once per month for a week at a time. So I was the person who received the phone calls in relation to critical incidents and briefed the region commander.
Okay. And is it fair to say that you've had exposure to those guidelines ever since in various other different capacities, for example, as a superintendent?
Yes.
And more recently as an acting assistant commissioner? Did you receive any training in relation to the documentation that should be completed for critical incident matters in your role as an acting assistant commissioner?
No.
Okay. What about in your role as a superintendent?
No.
Okay. I'll show you a form called a P1179. Are you familiar with that term, the P1179 form? Tab 52, which is Exhibit 4C. It's a public, sorry, 4, Exhibit 4. That's the public exhibit. 5, I beg your pardon.
That was my error from this morning.
That's... Have that up on the screen now, thank you. So this is the P1179 document. You've seen this before?
Yes.
Have you received any training in your capacity as a superintendent in relation to this document?
No.
No. Have you ever completed this document to declare a critical incident?
To declare one?
To declare one.
Not to my recollection.
Okay. Have you ever completed one to, by way of non-declaration of a critical incident?
Yes.
You have. Okay. Can you tell us about that instance?
I don't have a strong recollection of it, but I am aware that at some point in time, on at least one occasion, whilst I was at the region office as the on-call inspector,
Yes.
I briefed the region commander on a potential critical incident. That critical incident wasn't declared, and I completed the incident non-declaration form on behalf of the region commander.
Okay. So that is, we might flick through to the next page, which is barcode 213. Do you remember when approximately the timing of that non-declaration?
I couldn't say with any accuracy.
Okay. But certainly whilst you're an inspector.
Correct.
So if we go to barcode 213 and bring up part 3, decision of region commander. Is that in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. And you see there, it sets out following consideration of the answers in the questions in part 2 above, which relates to, of course, the criterion that is set out in section 111 of the LEC Act. It indicates, did the region commander declare the incident a critical incident, and goes on to ask for yes. You tick the box for the reasons indicated in part 2 above, or no for the following reasons, and the reasons are then set out in that box there. Just to be very clear, you've never been given any training in relation to when one would complete that section no for the following reasons.
No.
Thank you. And this is a form, if you see on page 1 of that form, that's 212, barcode 212. This is a record, it says up the top, of the decision of region commander in considering declaring the following incident a critical incident under section 111. So this is a form to be completed where there has been consideration about declaring a critical incident. Do you agree with that characterisation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. Have you ever been involved with or heard of a critical incident being declared under that second public interest limb in section 111?
Not to my recollection.
Were you aware that actually there's only been 2 since 2017 to present day under that limb?
Seem correct.
That's not surprising to you? No. What's your understanding of what that limb relates to, that public interest limb, the type of matter that would capture?
Well, in the first instance, I expect it would have the same categorisation as a death or a serious injury
Yes.
to someone. Presumably it's not meeting the criteria, but for whatever reason, as the region commander, you're of the view that there is something particular about the circumstances of that matter that you think require exploration under the critical incident guidelines.
Okay. Is there difficulty with erring on the side of caution, in declaring a critical incident, in the sense that if you're a bit unclear, it's in that sort of grey zone, is it prudent to declare it and then revoke it if it later becomes clear? Or to your mind, is there some downside in making that declaration and then revoking subsequently?
I don't have a view either way.
Well, for example, one difficulty might be that if you declare it and then investigate it, for example, for a couple of weeks as a critical incident, but then revoke the declaration, one downside might be the impost on the staff or the stigma for the staff. Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure that I agree that it's an impost on the staff.
Might raise welfare concerns. Yeah, a downside. Please, you use your language.
I guess my confusion with this question is in the context of calling a critical incident, investigating for 2 weeks and then rescinding that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure I have a view about
Very
what
circumstance
that happens.
specific.
Yeah, it would depend on the circumstances.
Okay. All right, well, we can come to this example more specifically as we go through, but no doubt as in your role as in HR, you would have seen the impost of critical incidents on officers in terms of welfare concerns. Is that fair?
I think for a whole range of activities, but certainly critical incidents, you're mindful of welfare of staff and ensuring that they have appropriate supports around them. That is provided both within the New South Wales Police, but also the Police Association of New South Wales.
All right. Thank you. Now, anything else about critical incidents? Right. So we'll come to the events of 4 June 2023. I appreciate it's almost 3 years ago, so you will have dealt with many incidents since that time. So we do appreciate that we're testing your memory. But as you sit here now, how clear can you recall, in particular those days following the tragic death of Miss Lucina? That is from about 4 January through to 15, 14 January when you hand back to Assistant Commissioner McKenna.
So we're talking about the period I was relieving because
Correct.
First you said 4 June. So
I beg your pardon, I thought I said 4 January. 4 January through to about the 14th or the 15th of January, that 2-week period. How clear is that in your recollection?
I mean, I feel like I have a reasonable recollection, but it's a recollection that has needed to be assisted through the documentation that I had from that time.
Okay, and that has refreshed your memory somewhat?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and is it your practice to take contemporaneous notes about significant matters in your diary?
It's one of my practices, yes.
What other practices do you have to keep notes to remind yourself of relevant events?
Well, for instance, relieving as a region commander, I commence my hand back the day that I start. And so I expect that the notes in that hand back written for Mr McKenna were done not at the end of that period, but on or around the time that that job occurred.
So you were keeping that as a contemporaneous live document, as it were? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Would you, in relation to your diary, would you enter those notes at the end of the day, or would you do them as they happened?
As a general rule, I would try to do them as they occur. There are odd occasions if you go from one thing to the next, you might do 2 meetings at once.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just in terms of the chronology, and as I say, please, you should feel free to refer to any of your materials if I'm taking you to a time or a date and it seems inaccurate. So we understand from your diary notes that you've prepared, and I'm going to tab 87, which is exhibit 25C, barcode 791, please. And this, we understand, is an extract from your diary. Just wait for it to pop up on the screen. Does that come up there? So this is an entry on the 3rd of January, but it refers to 1:21 a.m. Do you see that? So that should be the 4th of January. And so the reference is Jones called re homicide Ballina as per notes and email.
Yes.
Can you decode that entry for us?
Sure. I expect that means at 1:21 Lisa Jones, who was the on-call inspector, phoned me in relation to the homicide.
Yep.
I've written as per notes. My understanding of that would mean as per the on-call officer's notes. So typically, if I get called during the night, so we're on call 24/7, 365 days of the year, except when you're on leave, I won't always make notes on the night. That will depend on what the incident is and whether anything of concern that would require me to make a decision, like a high-risk incident has occurred, and I'll make notes. If I'm satisfied that the conversation with the on-call person, there's nothing contentious or problematic in there, then I will trust their notes.
Okay. So have you seen those notes? No. Commissioner, I think for completeness we might just call for a copy of the notes that are referred to, pursuant to section 69(2).
Would that be something that you would be able to obtain, Superintendent Chapman?
Yes.
Ms Jones's notes?
Yes.
Could
I could ask her for them.
Yes. Could I ask you to obtain them, and I'll make a formal call for those notes under section 69, subsection 2 of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission Act. We can follow up with that. Do you have a difficulty with that, Mr Gollan?
Only in the context of what was said. She said that she could ask her. The court order or the commission's order would impose an obligation.
I mean, the other option is that we issue a section 55 to Ms Jones to see if we can...
I think that would be the better approach in fairness to the witness.
Perhaps that could be facilitated through the Commissioner's
I'm sure
representative.
the Commissioner won't have any difficulty following it up as a matter of expedition. But I just...
No, that's fair. Why don't we'll section 55 notice formally will issue in due course, but if you could make the arrangements to get them obtained promptly, then we can exchange you for a section 55 once they're available. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have a recollection now as to what Inspector Jones said about this incident?
Not a strong one, other than I was obviously made aware that there was a homicide. It's my belief, I was advised it was a DV homicide.
Yes.
Some brief circumstances of that, but the detail I couldn't with certainty say, and that I was advised that Superintendent Tanner was attending the scene, and hence that's the reference to the email. I believe he would provide an email briefing.
You can facilitate the expedition of this. Could I ask for the name and position of Ms Jones?
She's an inspector. I understand her full name is...
Lisa Jones, did you say,
Yes.
Ms Chapman? And do you know where she's currently located?
She's a district inspector at Lake Macquarie Police District.
Okay, thank you.
So that was a brief conversation, I assume, was it, with Inspector Jones?
I couldn't say.
I remember. And where were you when you received that? At home, in bed?
In bed.
Where was your office whilst you were the acting Assistant Commissioner?
Newcastle.
In Newcastle. Thank you. Do you recall, after receiving that call from Inspector Jones, having a discussion with Superintendent Tanner whilst he was on scene?
During the night?
Yes.
No.
Possible that happened, you just can't now recall it?
Correct.
Do you recall receiving any photographs from him or in a text message from the scene?
No.
You don't think that happened?
I don't recall it happening.
Would that be unusual to receive a text message with photos from a scene?
Not necessarily, if they were relevant for some reason.
Could we ask you to check, please, your phone records to see if you received from Superintendent Tanner on the 4th of January some photographs from the scene?
So when you say phone record,
Your phone?
actual phone?
Yes,
I checked that when I was asked, when I received the notice, and I have no messages from Superintendent Tanner in terms of text messages at that time.
At that time, which suggests that those messages weren't sent to your mind?
I'm not sure whether I could have changed, like I might have a different phone.
Okay.
I don't recall the last time my phone was changed. I'm not suggesting it didn't occur, just that I don't have a recollection of it, and there's no record of that on my phone.
Okay. As in there's no record of any exchanges with Superintendent Tanner? Is
Correct.
that? And you might expect that there would have been if it was the same phone that you had?
Correct.
All right. So that suggests you have changed phones, perhaps unsurprisingly, since that time.
Yes.
Now, can you recall having a conversation with Superintendent Tanner sometime later that morning?
Conversation at 9:15.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. What can you tell us about that conversation?
He had sent me an email detailing some of the information in relation to the attendance of police at the scene. We discussed that.
And so you're referring to a diary note that you've set out
Yes,
on the
that's my
4th
only
of...
I can't recall the conversation without looking at the diary note.
All right. Well, we'll bring that up for the record. This is tab 87, Exhibit 25C, barcode 792. Perhaps, rather than jump back in time, we might start just chronologically with the first entry that is there at 7:40am. Have I read that right?
Correct.
Okay, right. Now that's come up on the screen.
Yes.
So we'll come back to Superintendent Tanner in that discussion, but this is a discussion with, is this Superintendent Greg Thomas?
Correct.
And perhaps you could just read onto the record for us this entry, if you wouldn't mind.
Discussion, Thomas re homicide, closest substantive CM, which is crime manager, is O'Reilly at MNC, which is
Yes.
Mid-North Coast.
Yes.
Do I want to send him for a day to look at it? Question mark. Want to understand the level of involvement, consultation from homicide, if they are covering 7 p.m. to midnight actions, satisfied another oversight not required. Initial review by Superintendent Tanner, clarity required on time of death from PM. Homicide involvement, call follow-up question mark, walk through with officers attending at 8 p.m.
Okay. What was Superintendent Thomas's role?
He was the operations manager for Northern Region.
Okay. And what is it that is the purpose of this call with him at that time?
This wasn't a phone call, this was in person.
Okay, thank you.
Because in that role as the operations manager, Detective Superintendent Thomas had direct contact with State Crime Command and the homicide squad. He was responsible for organising the region response in terms of resources, and he's also someone significantly experienced in the region role and in the operations manager role, and who I discussed the consideration of a critical incident with.
Okay. At that point in time?
Correct.
What was that discussion around?
We discussed that it didn't meet the circumstances, which is why there was then the question mark, closest substantive crime manager is O'Reilly at Mid-North Coast. Do I want to send him for a day to look at it? That was a question that I believe he asked of me,
Yeah.
because neither of us were of the view that it met a critical incident. And my view was I wanted to understand the level of involvement consultation from homicide and whether they're covering those actions from 7 p.m. till midnight. And so it was my expectation that he would clarify that for me because he was the contact with State Crime Command and Homicide Squad.
So was the crime manager O'Reilly, is he a detective inspector?
Correct.
Or, was he involved, to your knowledge, in the matter? Did he become involved at some point?
No. Well, not that I'm aware.
Not that you're aware of. Was it Detective Superintendent Thomas who engaged with the homicide consultant, namely Inspector Glenn Brown? Is that who it was, or you can't recall?
I can't recall.
Right. But there was a concern, I take it, from what you've written there, to ensure that there was a review of any potential deficiencies in the initial police response. Is that fair?
Certainly wanted to understand what had occurred.
Okay. How long was that discussion, to the best of your memory? Are we talking sort of this is a detailed discussion, or is it more a fairly brief one?
I couldn't say with clarity, but I expect we had an 8 a.m. briefing, so I expect I spoke to him for 20 minutes prior to the briefing.
Okay. Because by that time you had the benefit of the 3:25 a.m. email from Superintendent Tanner, that's right? We'll just go to that to refresh our memory. We've seen this email before, and no doubt you have. It's attached to your response at 818 of Exhibit 25C. Do you have a copy of that? We'll just wait for it to come up too.
It's fine, I have a copy.
There's the email from Superintendent Tanner to you at 3:25 a.m. Take it you didn't read that until sometime later.
Correct.
That's, I think, about 7 o'clock, is that right? Or
I imagine it was earlier than that.
in fact, I beg your pardon, I think you forward that email to Lachlan Pritchard, who's the staff officer for Deputy Commissioner Pasanos at 5:27 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's at barcode 786 for completeness. I don't think that we need to go there. But were you at home when you did that, or were you in Newcastle bright and early?
I believe I was at work.
Okay. Now, just in relation to that email that had been sent by Superintendent Tanner, was there anything in the incident summary that was set out there that gave you cause for concern?
I certainly wanted to understand what car crews were doing during that period of time between the original call and when police attended.
The reason for the delay?
Sure.
And did you know this premises in Ballina, this Salvation Army in Holden Lane? Had you ever had? No? Do you know Ballina at all?
I would say no.
Right. So that your particular concern on reading that was to understand further the delayed police response?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now, after that email sent, we've canvassed the discussion with Superintendent Thomas at 7:40. We could go back, please, to your diary entry. This is back at 7:92. Now we're at the 9:15 discussion with Superintendent Tanner.
Yes.
Could I trouble you, please, to read onto the record your entry there? I'm sorry, before we go to that, I'm so sorry. Can we just go back to the discussion with Superintendent Thomas? What was proposed in terms of the entry walkthrough with officers attending at 8 p.m? What did you have in mind in relation to that?
I walk through what the circumstances were for them, so for Superintendent Tenner to understand what had occurred.
Okay, that's not an actual walkthrough where they go on scene?
I don't believe that's what I meant by that.
Okay. What about the reference to caller follow-up, question mark?
I wanted to ensure that there were inquiries being made to identify the caller who had contacted 000.
Okay. All right. And as set out earlier, you've referred to the notion that if homicide are covering the police actions from 7 to midnight, in your view, quote, satisfied another oversight is not required, and that was also Superintendent Thomas's view?
I can't speak for Superintendent Thomas, but my understanding was he was of the same view.
He agreed?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so now we're at the 9:15 entry that you were about to read out. Thank you.
9:15 a.m, phone call Tenner, satisfied police attended as quickly as they could, have patrolled front and rear with nil find, victim later located with assistance from POI through 2 gates, in brackets side area, where donations etc. are. Superintendent Tenner attended the scene and indicates difficulty locating her due to the environment. Male caller also homeless and not yet located. Witnesses have heard arguing post-police attendance.
Thank you. So on the basis of that entry, you understood from Superintendent Tenner that there had been a patrol of the front and the rear of the Salvation Army building with nil find. Is that right? Was that understanding ever corrected at any point?
No.
Was that always your understanding that they patrolled the front and the rear?
Correct.
Did you have an understanding about whether or not they went into the car park at the Salvation Army building in the car?
I don't recall that level of detail.
What do you mean?
I don't recall if that was discussed specifically or not.
But at any time, did you come to understand whether or not they'd gone into the car park?
I don't know. I don't recall having a conversation about whether they physically went into the car park or not. So I don't recall having a conversation. I don't recall having a view.
Did you ever look at a map of what the Ballina Salvation Army building looks like, or where it's located, or anything of that kind?
Sure.
Assistant
At some
Commissioner?
point.
Right.
I'm not sure that I ever asked specifically the question about whether they went into the car park or not. I simply don't have a recollection.
You would have wanted to understand the nature of the steps that had been taken by those police officers, though, wouldn't you?
Well, I wanted to understand that Superintendent Tenner had explored those issues and was satisfied that their response was appropriate.
Okay. But you also needed to have an understanding about that, didn't you?
Well, I needed to have an understanding of, yes, the broader circumstances, the minutiae detail, perhaps not, but I don't recall specifically asking about the car park. I may have, I simply don't have a recollection.
Did you have an understanding about whether the officers had left their vehicle at this point in time?
So at some point in time, I'm aware that I understood they had not left their vehicle. I don't recall at what point I became aware of that.
Okay. And was that a matter that in any respect troubled you?
Again, it's something that I would want to understand what occurred and whether that was reasonable or not.
Okay. Can you broadly identify when you became aware that they had not left their vehicles?
I expect somewhere in those first few days.
Okay. And did you at any point in those first few days, or even at any point after, look at their statements?
I believe I saw one statement.
Do you remember which statement? And I should say we haven't indicated to you the pseudonyms that have been allocated for ease of reference, I'm referring to them as by car call sign. So Ballina 14, who was the supervisor.
I believe that was the one I saw.
Okay, and the other one is Woodburn 29, just for your reference. It's Officer D, but...
The statement of the supervisor.
Okay. And do you think you saw that in the days that followed the 4th of January?
Correct.
Okay. So at that point you would have become aware that Ballina 14 hadn't left his vehicle? Do you remember asking any questions of Superintendent Tanner about that aspect?
I can't specifically recall. I believe I had a conversation about that at some point, but I can't specifically recall and I don't have a note.
You would have asked some questions because on its face that raises concerns that police wouldn't get out of their vehicle in the circumstances in responding to a P2 report of a female being bashed behind the Salvation Army.
I don't necessarily agree that that would automatically raise a concern, no.
Okay, that didn't trouble you, the notion that they hadn't left their vehicles in the circumstances as you understood it?
When you say it didn't trouble me, when I first became aware of it, I expect I wanted to understand it further.
Yes.
But upon review of that statement, I was not concerned with the statement of the officer.
Okay. What is it that gave you comfort?
I think the officer explained the circumstances and their view of the car park, what they could see at the time, covered a range of issues such as lighting, etc. Yes. When you look at a map, for me, I expect that it's reasonable that they could see into that car park. The report was, and bearing in mind there was one report of a female being assaulted, that in itself can be unusual. You would sometimes expect more than one when you have someone being assaulted in public place. But I was of the view the officer's statement covered the reason he didn't get out and was clear in that he had a full view of the car park, which was the identified location, and I was satisfied with that explanation.
Is it right, though, that you might only ever get one call from a member of the public about a serious incident?
Certainly.
So it's not safe to assume that just because there's one call that it's not a potentially serious matter? And were you shown the crime scene photographs at any point in the days after Miss Lucina's death?
I have no recollection of that.
Have you ever?
I'm not sure.
Have you ever seen the crime scene photos?
Well, not to my recollection.
Have you seen the photograph of the fence, the gated area on the left-hand side of the Salvation Army building?
It's possible, yes. I feel like, and it's quite difficult as 3 years ago, I feel like I've seen a photo of the gates, at least.
Okay. Did you have an understanding that the officers were not able to see beyond those gates in their patrol?
That was my understanding.
Okay. And you had an understanding, did you, that they hadn't gone into the car park and shined lights down the side to see whether they could see anything on the side of the building?
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
I can. You had an understanding, correct me if this is not correct, that they had or they hadn't gone into the car park to shine lights in that area or look down the area where the gated fence was on the left-hand side?
As indicated, I don't have a recollection of knowing exactly whether they went into the car park or not. So it's difficult to answer that question.
Based on your understanding of police powers, in response to this scenario, that is male stated female being bashed behind Salvation Army building, if police had gone to that fence, it's unlocked, on the basis of that scenario, would they have the authority to open the gates and enter? And perhaps draw your attention in particular to Section 9 of LEPRA, the Emergency Powers Authority.
I don't have the section in front of me.
Yeah,
and,
that's very fair.
Having said that, I expect there's a potential they don't have that power. The call was for behind the Salvation Army, not in the Salvation Army or down the side of the Salvation Army. The car park is presumably public space. Okay. I expect through the gate is not a public space.
Yes.
So unless there was something in addition to that first call, I don't necessarily agree they would have the power to enter.
So that might depend on the circumstances, for example, whether there was someone in that section who raised concerns for them, in that gated section.
I don't understand.
So, for example, hypothetically speaking, if they had encountered Mr Huber,
Yes.
they may, for example, well, you've read the statement of Ballina 14, you're aware that he knew Mr Huber?
I don't have a recollection of it.
So he was involved in the laying of charges on the 27th of December 2022, the DV charges, and his evidence is to the effect that he did recognise Mr Huber when he came into the police station at 12:30 that night.
Commissioner, my learned friend has conflated the hindsight bias, as it were, that we've found out that it was Huber at some later time, with being the assailant, as it were, that is suggested to be the subject matter of the Triple O call. The two don't necessarily sit side by side with respect. So the proposition that's being put lacks a foundation that is probative sufficient to assist you.
Can we put on the assumption that it's Mr Huber? The assumption may or may not be borne out. In my submission, it will be borne out, but in any event, on the assumption that Ballina 14 saw... Sorry, did you...
I'm comfortable with, if the assumption that Mr Huber was behind those gates, if you assume that, would that, and on the assumption that Ballina 14 knew Mr Huber and knew that he'd charged him recently with domestic violence offences, would that have given Ballina 14 a lawful justification to enter that gated property?
Well, with respect, Commissioner, what that presupposes is that there's any probative value in that it's anyone. It doesn't matter whether or not they're recognised. The question only has probative value if you connect the assailant, as it were, or the perpetrator with Mr Huber. Now, if the assumption is that they knew that Mr Huber was the person that was the subject matter of the Triple O call, well, then that's fine, because you can identify him as being the perpetrator. But in the absence of that, it elevates the question to him being a criminal, as it were. We all know that's as it turns out. But at the time that the police officer's mind is being inquired of as to the exercise of his power, it's a completely unfair and non-probative question.
So it was known that there was a Triple O call, male bashing female.
Correct?
And it's known that's behind the Salvation Army building.
Correct.
And it's known that Mr Huber has current charges for domestic violence offences against his partner.
It's not known that Mr Huber is the subject matter of the Triple O call.
No, but you know those three things together?
One of the police officers, yes, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. So with that knowledge, the question for the witness is, would that give a sufficient lawful basis to go and speak to Mr Huber, even if it had been behind a gate?
Speak to him or enter the premises, the enclosed lands?
Well, let's start with speak to him, and then we'll move to enter the premises.
We're presuming he saw him, is that?
Yeah, this is speculative. So we're trying to work out, had the officers got out of the car, and had they seen, so Officer Ballina 14 knew Mr Huber and knew that he had a domestic violence offence, and a domestic violence charge, I should say.
I knew there was an AVO.
An AVO. And he also knew that a call had come over the radio that from that location, a man was alleged to have been bashing a woman. If he was then to see someone that he knew had an AVO charge, would that give him legal justification to at least approach the gate and speak to Mr Huber?
He can speak to anyone.
Okay. Would it have given him justification to go in through an unlocked gate, do you think, and search and have a look down the side of that Salvation Army property? Nothing's broken, I can add, by doing that. There's no break and enter. It's a lifting of an unlocked pool gate.
Based on that information,
Mm.
unless there was some further, something further in the course of the conversation with that person, I don't necessarily think you still don't necessarily have power to enter private property.
Okay.
Might move on from that. Go back to your diary entry at 9:45. It says briefed LP as per above. Who's LP?
Lachlan Pritchard.
Ah, thank you. That's because the Deputy Commissioner needs to understand what's going on as well. All right, and then can you assist us with the entry at 10:55, please?
So I spoke with Detective Superintendent Thomas, read the homicide sit rep. I was, am I reading this on record or am I?
Please read it
giving you
on
my
record and interpret as you see
As I
fit.
go or at the end?
As you go.
So, yes, I spoke to Detective Superintendent Thomas in relation to the sit rep that had been circulated for the homicide.
Yes.
I wanted more detail. It says more detailed required. I expect that the initial 000 call, et cetera, should have been included.
Yes.
It should also have included interaction on the 2912. I believe from memory that was when he was most recently charged.
Yes. And then there's some detail there about some sensitive information that I don't think we need to
Correct,
go to.
okay. And then I wanted to understand what was being done to locate the original informant. It says can't rule out a second POI because at this point in time there's still nothing to suggest the 000 caller wasn't involved in the matter.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall the discussion that morning or indeed at any stage that day with Acting Assistant Commissioner David Driver from Professional Standards Command? Just don't recall. It may have happened, but you can't recall it.
Don't recall having a conversation with him.
You don't think that did happen?
I don't know. I don't recall it happening. I haven't made a note of
Haven't
it.
made a note. And you likely would have?
I guess it depended on the call and the nature of the call.
So you weren't concerned to consult Professional Standards Command to obtain some advice in relation to this matter?
I don't recall. I mean, I don't have a note of it.
Right. Okay.
It's
So
3
that-
years ago.
And at the outset, I indicated that we understood that. At 1:10 p.m, you've made a reference to Pisanos. Can you just read that out and give us your best recollection of what that relates to, please?
So at 1:10 p.m, Pisanos confirmed current plan, including region response and holding crime scene.
Okay. Is that a reference to a Teams meeting that was held?
I believe so.
Do you remember who was in attendance at the Teams meeting?
Well, I remember myself, Deputy Commissioner Pisanos, Superintendent Tanner. I believe Mr Pisanos had at least one or two other people with him, potentially Lachlan Pritchard.
Yes.
Not sure if there was a second person, and from memory, Inspector Crotty was with me.
Was that your staff officer at that point in
Correct.
time? And Inspector Crotty was taking notes of the meeting. You don't have access to those. You've very clearly set that out in your response. Commissioner, call for production of those notes pursuant to perhaps a Section 55
We
is
might
the...
add that to the Section 55 to the Commissioner of Police, which is the notes of Inspector Crotty of the meeting at about 1 p.m. on the 4th of January.
What's his first name or her first name? Matthew, thank you. To the best of your recollection, what was discussed at that meeting, that Teams meeting?
I believe that Mr Pisanos was provided with an overview of what was known at that time by both myself and Superintendent Tanner. I could not, with any significant, I guess, clarity indicate who said what. but certainly the circumstances up until that point were provided to Mr. Pizzanos. There was some discussion in relation to media requirements, discussion in relation to the plan moving forward, and I expect that was mostly it.
Okay. Was there discussion about whether or not the matter should be declared a critical incident?
I don't have a specific recollection of the notion of a critical incident being discussed. What I can say with clarity was at no stage was there a suggestion that I should revisit a decision to call a critical incident at that point.
Just in fairness to you and Superintendent Tanner's recollection is to the effect that one clear purpose of that meeting was for the purpose of discussing whether the matter required to be a critical incident investigation. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. That's not my recollection. As I said, I don't have the notes from the meeting. I've only the notes in front of me.
Yeah.
And if a critical incident was discussed, which I said may have been, there certainly wasn't an expectation that a critical incident should be called.
And it's your decision as Assistant Commissioner and Region Commander to call a critical incident.
That responsibility sits with the Assistant Commissioner. I'm not sure if I were not to call one, whether a Deputy Commissioner would be able to call one over the top or not. But certainly the responsibility in terms of the guidelines sits with an Assistant Commissioner, which is the Region Commander.
You don't remember Deputy Commissioner Pizzanos expressing a view one way or the other?
Well, I would suggest that if he did express a view, it was that he was satisfied that there was no requirement for a critical incident to be called. I say that on the basis that I was a relieving Assistant Commissioner, and
Yes.
if the Deputy Commissioner said to me, you need to think about this being a critical
Yes.
incident, I'm confident there would be further discussion, certainly further notes in relation to that, and potentially look at where we head after that.
Do you recall whether there was discussion during that team's meeting about the nature of the patrol that the officers who had attended at 7:55? No? There wasn't discussion, or you don't recall?
I don't have that recollection.
Okay. So after that meeting, is it correct that Superintendent Tanner was asked, or as a function of that meeting, Superintendent Tanner was asked to conduct a review of the workload in the Ballina and Lismore sector?
Can you ask the question again, sorry?
So during that team's meeting, or afterwards, was it decided, or did you direct Superintendent Tanner to conduct a review of the Ballina and Lismore staffing and workload?
I believe that was a discussion at some point.
You can't remember if it came out of that meeting or afterwards. All right. And what was the purpose of that review?
I don't recall the specifics of the conversation, but I expect the purpose of the review was to understand what car crews were available in that, not just Ballina, but more broadly within the Richmond Police District at that time.
To inform the issue of the delayed police response.
Correct.
Right, and so if you could turn please to the email on the 4th of January at 3:11 p.m. This is at still at tab 8725C, barcode 826, ending 826, please.
.311?
3:11, yes. Come up on the screen as well in front of you. Thank you. So this is the email that Superintendent Tanner sent to you, Superintendent Thomas, Deputy Commissioner Pizzanos and his staff officer, copied to the OIC and the crime manager. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
And do you see under the heading investigation, there's the second bullet point, 2 workers from the Salvation Army have provided statements, and it goes on the third bullet point. These 2 workers last saw the POI at 9:30 p.m. last night. When they arrived, they heard the female yell out to the POI, alerting him to the presence of these 2 workers. And it goes on, the 2 workers did not call police, held no concerns for the welfare of the victim. That information was significant to a consideration about a potential critical incident, wasn't it?
In what sense?
Well, in that it suggested that at 9:30 p.m, the female had been heard to yell out. So she was alive at that time.
Someone, a female yelled out,
Yes? Yes?
according to that, yes.
Okay. Well,
I
if
don't
you
know
disagree,
it's the female.
if you disagree with me that that's not significant, please explain. I'd be wish to give you the opportunity to explain your thinking. But was that significant information for
It's a consideration.
In what way is it a consideration?
Well, there's the potential if that was the female, that she was still alive at 9:30, if that was the deceased.
Did you see that particular state? Did you have a doubt about that in your mind when you saw that it might have been the victim?
It was a consideration, of course, yes.
Did you have a doubt as to whether or not that was the victim?
I certainly didn't necessarily expect it was the victim. It's a female.
Right. So if there was a question mark about whether that was the victim, did you ask to see the statements? Shouldn't you have done that if there was a doubt in your mind about whether this female was the victim? That was unclear.
It wouldn't be a practice that I would ask for their statements for that. The question was, could it have been the female? And I agree that it might have been the female. I'm just saying it wasn't necessarily the female, but at the time I expected it was likely to be the female. Does that help?
Well, for the purposes of a critical incident analysis, I suggest that is important information. Do you agree with that?
Yes, for consideration.
Yes, thank you. All right. It goes on. Under the heading review, I have reviewed the staffing level and workload from last night, and then there's a breakdown of available vehicles and staff. You've had a chance to, no doubt, read that in preparation for these proceedings. Were there any concerns, do you recall, when you saw this about the resources that were operative in the Ballina and the Lismore sector on that shift?
For the shift more broadly? Or?
For the shift, for the relevant period that is covered by this review as referred to by Superintendent Tanner in accordance with the request from you to undertake this review.
Okay, yes. And the question is?
Did you have any concerns in relation to any of the information that has been set out there regarding staffing level and workload from last night?
Were not of significant concerns, no?
You didn't have significant concerns. Did you have any concerns?
It's difficult to be clear about what was in my mind at the time I read this
Yes?
on the 4th of January and what now might have, caused you to read something differently. So it's hard to understand what was in my mind at the time.
All right. Did you have an understanding as to how many priority 2 jobs were operative in the Lismore sector, in the Ballina sector for the relevant period, let's say from 7 through to...
So there are 2 P2 jobs, is that
well,
confirmed?
did you understand that there were competing priority 2 jobs... Let me finish the question if you would. That there were competing priority 2 jobs that prevented the Ballina crews from attending to the Salvation Army incident. competing priority 2 jobs?
Well, there were competing jobs. The only ones that say priority 2 are the job at 1838 and the job at 1903, which was the concern for welfare for male assaulting a female.
That's the Salvation Army.
Correct.
Yes. So if you'd accept from me that the record indicates that that is the only P2 that comes in during the period 6:38 p.m. through to 7:41, when there's then 2 jobs that relate to casino and another area that is not Ballina. That is the only P2 job. Right? Did you have that understanding, Superintendent, from that email?
I expect I would have, yes.
What's your understanding of a priority 2 job in terms of the police response that is required?
Priority 2 job would ordinarily be an urgent response.
Okay, and a priority 3 job?
So I guess it depends how you frame urgent. So urgent might be lights and sirens. A priority 3 job is something you need to get to as soon as possible, as opposed to a priority 4, which is, I guess, more likely something that can be stood over to another time, like even another day.
Did you ask Superintendent Tanner any questions about this review, do you recall?
I don't recall.
Did you look at any of these incidents for yourself to form a view? And certainly, and I'm not suggesting you should have done, but I take it you wouldn't have checked any rosters, you're just relying on his summary. All right. Did you at any point listen to the VKG audio for that period, that 7 to 8? Is that something you've ever done, listen to VKG transmissions?
District Commander, yes.
All right. And that's a helpful insight into the contemporaneous things that are going on during a relevant incident.
Yes, can be.
And in fact, the CAD incident log also gives a summary of broadcast information in relation to a job. You aware of that? Do you have an understanding of Radio Operation Group protocol regarding the frequency for broadcasts in relation to P2 jobs?
I couldn't cite it.
Did you know that there is a requirement, if a job hasn't been acknowledged, within 90 seconds, it's then to be rebroadcast every 60 seconds by VKG? Does that accord with your experience that you hear unacknowledged P2 jobs continually coming over VKG?
Every 60 seconds?
Yes?
No.
All right. What? Just tell us about your experience in that regard.
I sit in my office at Lake Macquarie, and I have the Lake Macquarie channel running all the time.
Yes?
And I would not form the view, albeit I have never sat and listened and timed, but I would not form the view that a priority 2 job that has not been answered has necessarily been called every 60 seconds.
All right. Thank you. And I take it you're not aware of the evidence that has come out in relation to non-compliance with Radio Operation Group protocols from this investigation? Thank you. All right. Now, just in relation to the SIT rep that contains more information in accordance with your request, this is at barcode 796 of tab 8725C is the exhibit. That come up on the screen for you there, Superintendent? See under heading current position, there's reference to detail in relation to that first attendance by police. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you See, the fourth sentence, police were delayed in their response by other priority 2 incidents occurring in the area at the time. See that reference? Was that your understanding at the time that SITREP was sent out?
I don't recall.
All right, can we go to back to your notes, please? No, in fact, I think we've mercifully covered the 5th. On the 6th of January, you make a note about still waiting for the post-mortem. Do you see that? That is at barcode.
So that's tab 87 still, isn't it?
I'm sorry, actually I haven't, I'm sorry, I can do this briefly. I haven't canvassed this. This is Thursday, the 5th of January. There's your entry there at 10 a.m. Could you assist us with unpacking what's written there, please?
Just get that brought up on screen.
Thank you. That's 793.
So tab 87, barcode 793. Excellent, thank you.
10 a.m, present for phone call with Tomo and Tanner. Questioned whether we had specifically requested an independent review by homicide of police action. In brackets, homicide consultant had indicated this. Confirmed that as part of decision making, my view included homicide reviewing evidence, information, and should include that within their scope and report any concerns independently. Also requested Tanner review officers' statements covering the initial attendance.
Thank you. So what can you recall about that interaction with Superintendent Thompson and Superintendent Tanner beyond what's written there?
Sure, so Detective Superintendent Thomas and
Yes.
Tanner had a phone call, I believe it was in the Region Commander's office.
Yes?
It was on speakerphone, so I was present for that as well. I questioned whether we had specifically requested that independent review process by homicide, and it's my understanding, because it's in brackets, that someone else indicated, homicide consultant had indicated this, and I expect that was Detective Superintendent Thomas, because he was generally the person who's that role as the liaison with State Crime Command.
Yes.
And I reaffirmed or confirmed that part of decision-making includes the view that homicide review that evidence and include it within their scope. Should there be concerns, it can be escalated independently of what else was occurring, such as the homicide investigation more specifically. And clearly asked Mr. Tanner to review the officer's statements.
Okay. How was this homicide review of police action to be formalised in some way? Was there to be some scope document prepared by someone that would identify what you had requested there? How was that to occur?
So it was my understanding that the homicide review process included a review of previous interactions with police, etc., and those particular parties. I'm not aware of whether they have a scope document or not, but quite clearly I asked for that to be included in their review process.
Through Superintendent Thomas?
Thomas, I believe.
Not Superintendent Tanner?
I couldn't say with absolute clarity.
Well, it's Superintendent Thompson who has the connection to... Thomas, thank you. Who has the connection to State Crime Command, isn't it?
As a general rule in a homicide investigation, that would be the case. But as a district commander, you're also in that loop as well, particularly in terms of, start of the day briefings, etc. As a district commander, if I had a homicide in my command, I would expect to be part of that briefing. So I would also have that contact with homicide.
Okay. All right. And that final sentence, requested Tanner review officer statement covering their initial attendance, and then at 1:15 there's the entry.
Correct.
Spoke with Tanner, Superintendent Tanner,
Correct.
awaiting officer statement, but will prioritise and review. And do you have any recollection about the outcome of that review?
Of him reviewing the statement?
Yes, and telling you about it.
It was mine, yes, and I don't have a note, but it would be my understanding we had a conversation and he raised no concerns about the statement.
Sorry, just heard a strange sound. And to be clear, you do think that you received Ballina 14 statement at some point, but you can't recall when?
Yes.
But you don't think you received Woodburn 29 statement?
No, I didn't.
You definitely didn't?
I don't have an email with that in it.
But you do have an email with Ballina 14 statement?
Yes.
Okay. What's the timing and date of that email?
It should be in with the
Apologies.
statement.
Pardon?
It was that week.
Received it that week?
Correct.
Do you have a covering email there?
No, it's not in my notes.
Have a recollection of receiving it? Or you definitely have a recollection of the email? I just don't think that the email is annexed to your response. I'm just trying to understand. Could be mistaken. Please correct me if I warrant correction.
I believe it came in an email,
Right.
which isn't in my response.
Um,
The statement is, but the covering email is not.
Email's not, that's just a simple omission, I'm sure. Well, just for completeness, we'll call for production of that email.
Yes, if you could.
There's nothing in the email. It's I know it. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
no,
in
and I'm not suggesting otherwise.
It's just a blank email with the statement attached from Superintendent Tanner.
All it'll tell us is the timing to complete
Yes.
the chronology.
If
That's
you
the
could
only-
provide that to the Commission through your lawyer
Thank you, sir.
when you get access to your emails again. Thank you.
And so then we move to the 6th of January. That's on the next page. That's barcode 794. And you'll see there, 3 p.m. postmortem not yet completed, will advise. Is it correct that you were particularly concerned to receive the postmortem to understand any information that might be provided about possible time of death?
Yes, I expect so.
Thank you. All right. Now, do you recall ever being updated by the officers undertaking the DV homicide review about their findings in relation to the police actions from 7 p.m. to midnight?
No, I wasn't.
You were never updated?
No.
So we come now to your handback to Assistant Commissioner McKenna. Now this is at the same tab, barcode 811, please. That's come up on the screen there. That's the front cover. Is this a pro forma document or is this one of your own?
It's Mr. McKenna's.
His,
So his handover to me
Yes.
was this document, and the section that you can see is number 4.
yes,
So he had each of those points, and I, as I went through the course of the 2 weeks, added something underneath those points if it was relevant to the handover.
I see. Thank you. And you added it, as you say, almost live as it's happening in real time rather than at the end.
Well, I wouldn't say live or real time, but certainly throughout the course of the 2 weeks.
Right, thank you. So point 4 on 813, barcode 813, if we can go through a couple of pages, please. Might not have the right document. So tab 87,
Oh, no, it's there.
barcode 813. Oh, it is there, I'm sorry. Sorry, mine's marked up. So you see the heading 4, adjudicate on whether a matter reported to you is a critical incident or not. That was a pre-populated heading, was it?
I believe so.
Okay. So then, but you've set out the information that follows below.
Correct.
So there's details under that heading Murder Richmond about the homicide matter. I can put it in those terms, and then there's some bullet points about the specific job at the Salvation Army.
Yes.
And then if we go down to, and the content of that section, has that been drawn from the information provided to you by Superintendent Tanner?
The dot point?
Yes.
I expect so.
Yes. And then do you see the next paragraph? It commences, I deemed not to be a critical incident.
Correct.
What did you mean by that?
I did not declare a critical incident.
All right, but you've used quite specific language. I deemed not to be a critical incident.
I determined it wasn't a critical incident.
You gave it close consideration and you formed the view that it was not. Is that how we should read that?
Yes.
Okay. And you go on to say it did not meet the criterion, and whilst acknowledged that as Region Commander I can consider a critical incident circumstances I see fit, I was of the view that Superintendent Tanner was attending and would provide review of the matter via briefing to myself and DCOP, that's Deputy Commissioner, it's Mr Pisanos. There would be a DV homicide review, and I requested the scope of the review include the activities between 1900 call and the time the POI enters the station. I was of the view that a further independent review was not required. Requested Superintendent Tanner to provide a full review of the activities of attending police and any attempt to get to the side of the premises or follow up with informant caller at the time. So just pausing there, can you explain to us, please, the nature of this request to Superintendent Tanner to provide a full review of the activities of attending police and any attempt to get to the side of the premises or follow up with the informant caller at the time?
So I expect when I wrote that part, it may well have been live because of the tense that I use. So when I wrote that, I'd obviously, during my conversations with Superintendent Tanner, asked him to review the activities, and I expect this is a question you asked me previously, any attempt to get to the side of the premises or follow up with the informant caller at the time. And they were the two things, well, certainly the follow-up with the informant caller, so I'd obviously asked for follow-up with that, and by those notes I would suggest that I wanted to understand whether they'd gotten to the side of the premises or, had gone looking in that direction. My understanding is they didn't.
It's quite specific, any attempt to get to the side of the premises. It's not about looking, you've used quite particular language there.
So, as I said, I don't know exactly when these were written.
Yes.
But given one of the conversations or the earlier emails from Superintendent Tanner described where the body was located, I expect I've asked him to review whether that initial attendance at 8 p.m, whether they attempted to get to the side or not, so I could understand what they'd done.
Because that was a matter of concern?
It's a matter I wanted to understand.
Because it was of concern in the context of the incident?
I don't know if I would frame it that way, but clearly I wanted to understand it and so that I could consider it in all of the circumstances. That was an information gap.
Did you have an expectation that officers attending a job like this would attempt to call the informant or caller?
Officers?
The officers who attended at 7:55, did you have an expectation that they would attempt to contact or follow up with the informant or caller at the time?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. What does that relate to? Can you just expand on that aspect?
Well, I think I meant who the informant caller was at the time, or whether, sorry, let me read it if that's okay. whether they did, I've written whether they followed up with the informant caller at the time. That might not be them. They might speak to 000, understand whether they'd attempted to call back. I didn't know the circumstances of anyone trying to call back the 000 caller. So I wanted to understand what that looked like.
This would have been, Assistant Commissioner McKenna was going to rely on this by way of an update to put him in the picture when he took over on the 15th of January, wasn't he?
What do you mean by way?
Well, it's a handback as at the 15th of January. You wouldn't include information that's out of date, as in things have moved on and it's no longer relevant.
I was explaining what I did at the time to
Yeah.
him. So I don't anticipate or expect Assistant Commissioner McKenna would have necessarily followed up any of this. So a handback as a reliever for me is twofold. One is to let them know what I did, but two might be things that require follow-up. So there are other things in that handover that might require follow-up, but there's nothing in that that necessarily requires him to follow up.
Did you have a discussion with him about this matter after you handed back?
I don't believe so. So there was a gap. So I didn't hand over directly to him.
Who did you hand over to?
Superintendent Tanner.
Okay. And so he was relieving in that role for a period?
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks. Okay. So then the last sentence is Superintendent Tanner has reviewed statements of attending police and was satisfied with their actions when first attending the job. Do you see that?
Yes.
So that suggests that he did report back to you about the outcome of his statement reviews and he was satisfied at some point. And indeed you had a statement yourself from Ballina 14.
From prepared by Ballina 14.
Yes.
Yes. Not sent to me by Ballina.
No, I'm sorry. Thank you for that clarification. Yes. As in you were in a position to indicate otherwise if you had a different view to Superintendent Tanner because you'd seen that statement.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to go to the Godfrey note. This is tab 111, Exhibit 27C.
That's fine. 5-minute break. We'll come back at 5 and 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes past 4.
For the Indulgence Commission.
I don't have much more, Superintendent Chapman. We're getting close to the end. So we have this Godfrey memorandum to deal with, Godfrey report. Thank you. We'll just wait for it to come up on the screen again. That's tab 111, Exhibit 27C. At barcode 889 for the record. So this is a Godfrey report that you have prepared in response to some correspondence received from LEC on the 7th of June 2023 in relation to the non-declaration of a critical incident in Ballina in January 2023. You've set out the background there in the first paragraph. Do you see that? I'm just going to read that for the record. Just after 1900 on 3rd January 2023, police received a 000 call from a male advising a woman was being assaulted behind the Salvation Army in Ballina. Attempts to call male back were unsuccessful. Pausing there, that's the telephonist at 000. Police at the time were unable to immediately respond. However, at approximately 19:55, police attended the location and were unable to identify any incident or the original informant who may have directed police to a more specific location. In relation to police being unable to identify any incident, you're there referring to police patrolling. There's no reference in this to police not alighting from the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
In fact, there's no reference to that aspect in this memorandum, in this report at any point, can I suggest?
Would you like me to read it?
You're not familiar with it? You certainly
I am,
can read it.
but that's quite specific.
Yes, please do.
I don't believe so.
And the reference to the attending police being unable to identify the original informant who may have directed police to a more specific location, is that a reference to Ballina 14 calling VKG?
No. For me, it's a reference to when they attended that location, they didn't identify an incident, and they
Yes.
didn't identify any other person, such as the original informant, who might have directed them to a more specific location.
Thank you. All right. It goes on, you have confirmed you were the acting region commander, you did not declare a critical incident.
Correct.
Then you have referred to the LEC correspondence and the reference to reconciling the non-declaration in this matter with another DV homicide in the Liverpool Local Area Command. See that?
Yes.
And so you say during the course of the morning of 4 January 2023, this incident was not raised with me with respect to a critical incident consideration by any other officers. Just pausing there. Is that accurate?
So what I mean by that is no one, if I can explain my experience in terms of being the on-call officer or a district commander, if an incident occurs within a police district, ordinarily the district commander's briefed by the duty officer, and then one or those other will ring the on-call officer for the region, and then ordinarily the region on-call person will call and say there's a potential critical incident for consideration. That did not happen. No one raised it with me in the context of you need to consider this as a potential critical incident.
So there was no formal request from an officer for you to turn your mind to that aspect. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But there were numerous discussions during the course of the day about whether or not it was a critical incident?
There were conversations, but I guess what I was trying to say is, but no one raised it with me and said, you need to consider a critical incident. It wasn't raised with me as a critical incident. I may have had discussions about it, but no one raised it with me. There's a delineation there for me.
I understand what you're saying, but certainly it was under live consideration by you.
Yes, I did.
Yes. And then you set out the critical incident guidelines and the reasons why it didn't fall within the scope of section 1110, the quite specific subsections that relate to the use of a police firearm, etc. We understand that. And then you say, I'm of the view that none of these circumstances were met. I'm aware that I may also declare a critical incident if I have other grounds for considering it's in the public interest. At the time, I caused suitable inquiries to be made into the circumstances of police attendance in order to determine a course of action. I was satisfied with the information provided by Superintendent Tanner with respect to the initial delay in attendance following his thorough and detailed review of CAD and all activities being undertaken at the time by rostered police. So in effect, entirely reliant on Superintendent Tanner for that assessment.
The review of CAD?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. I was also briefed by Superintendent Tanner with respect to the attendance of police at 1955 when considering the initial call location and ultimately the location of the victim at 12:30 a.m. The initial caller indicated rear of Salvation Army. Superintendent Tanner advised the victim was located at the side where police needed to be taken through two gates where donation items are kept. The environment made it difficult to locate the victim, and police needed to be directed to her in order to locate her. That's when they're on scene after, of course, she has been, Mr Huber has reported to police that she's been found deceased. Nowhere in that paragraph do we find reference to the patrolling police not alighting from their vehicle at any point, do we? That was an important factor to set out in this memorandum, I suggest.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. The correspondence asked me to say why I didn't declare a critical incident. It didn't ask me for all the circumstances relating to the police. So I provided a summary
Yes.
of why I didn't declare a critical incident. I didn't
Yes.
provide a full summary of everything police did or didn't do.
No.
That's not what the correspondence asked me to do.
Understood. But you have given a number of very particular specifics about the attendance of police at 1955 when considering the initial call location. Just not that detail about the fact that police didn't exit their vehicles.
Correct.
All right. Well, for completeness, I suggest that ought to have been included in the Godfrey note report.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Now, then you go on to say, I was satisfied with the information review provided by Superintendent Tanner. I also requested he ensure the DV homicide review by State Crime Command include assessing all matters, including in the lead up to locating the victim. Just pausing there, have you reflected on whether or not that's accurate, that statement?
I have, and I believe I made, I referenced the handover document when I wrote this report, and 6 months later, that was my recollection. I don't believe I went back to my original notes, which I obviously have done to prepare my statement, and so I understand that that was in a conversation with both Detective Superintendent Thomas and Superintendent Tanner, and I would not accurately say which one was asked or tasked to do either.
And you go on to say, on this basis, I was satisfied. I also requested he ensure the DV homicide review by State Crime Command include assessing all matters, including the lead up to locating the victim. So that is all matters being including any deficiencies in the police response, that's right?
Yes.
On the basis that I was satisfied there would be suitable independent review and any matters arising would be treated, if appropriate, under Part 8A of the Police Act. I maintain this position. And you go on to say, I note the correspondence draws comparison to a matter from Liverpool some month later. I'm of the view that the circumstances, whilst having some similarity, are glaringly different on a number of fronts. Do you see that? Now, you were provided with a copy of the correspondence, of course, to give this response. That is the correspondence from 2023. You don't have a copy of that? Did you see, were you not provided with a copy of the correspondence for the purposes of preparing the Godfrey report?
Yes, but I didn't retain it.
Okay. But you read the article at the time? You must have read the article that was attached to the correspondence at the time in order to form a view about whether or not there were similarities or otherwise. Well, how else could you form a view about whether or not there was similarity or glaring differences in between the matters?
Well, I must have had some awareness of the incident.
Right. Do you now have an awareness of the incident?
No.
So for the purposes of giving evidence today, you didn't refresh your memory about that aspect?
About the incident at Liverpool?
Yes.
No.
Well, I'll do that now in short form. It concerns, this is all in the public domain, so nothing I'm saying is sensitive. Concerns the tragic death of Tatiana Dokatoru, who made a frantic call. This is from an article that was annexed to the correspondence that was sent by LEC. Frantic, and we can perhaps pull this up whilst I'm reading from it for completeness. So if we go to...
So just for clarity, I don't believe the correspondence I saw had an attached is it a newspaper
Yes.
article? Is that?
Yes.
I don't have a recollection of
Okay.
ever seeing
We'll pull it up and just see if it rings any bells once it's in front of you. So this is tab 111, exhibit 27C. We can go first to barcode 893. Right, so that's the correspondence from LEC. Do you recall that letter? Dated 7 June. This is the letter you're responding to.
Well, I recall responding to the letter.
Yes.
If you're telling me this is what it was, I can only assume that.
Well, it's dated the 7th of June 2023, and if we look at your memo, you say correspondence received from LEC on 7 June 2023.
So correct, I'm assuming that, but I haven't read this. I don't have access to this since I wrote the original report.
I see.
So this is the first time I'm seeing
Okay,
this.
thank you.
For 2 years.
So please take your time to it's only a page and a little bit, so just take your time to look through that and let us know when you're at the end of that page and we can flick on to the next one.
Yes.
Right, next page, please. It's 894.
Yep.
Can we go to the next page, please? 895. So this is an ABC News article. Does this prompt your recollection?
I'm not convinced I've seen the article, but I'm satisfied the letter that you've shown me would have been the letter I was responding to.
All right. Do you think that do you see that the letter attaches the article? Do you see that?
Yes.
So, it's likely, isn't it, that if you received the letter, you would have seen that it refers to an attachment and you would have wanted to have seen the attachment to form a view about the comparison with the Ballina matter.
Well, I'm not sure if I had at that time, which I don't currently have now, I'm not sure if I had some knowledge of the Liverpool incident at that time, separate to this newspaper article. Whether I'd read a sit rep or something else, which may have identified differences.
All right.
Does that make sense?
I think so, but perhaps you can just assist us to the best of your recollection with, would you like an opportunity to read the article? Or I can read it to you.
Yeah. So, yep, I've read, the article.
You have read it?
Page.
That first page.
That first page. Can we go to the second page, please? And the next page, please.
Yes.
And the final page. Oh, actually, there's 2 more pages. Does that, having read that article through now, does that prompt your memory about whether you saw it at the time you were responding? You see that you say, I'm of the view that the circumstances, while having some similarity, are glaringly different on a number of fronts. Can you just explain your thinking in writing that, what you mean?
I can explain what I think now. I can't
Yes, of
explain
course.
what I thought at the time.
Do your
Because
best.
I don't know what my reference point was
All
at
right.
the time. But just in my reading of that article right now,
Yes.
I expect things such as the victim was the caller, and so you had a victim on the phone calling 000 and indicating what was occurring,
Yes.
as opposed to anonymous informant. There was a longer delay, and then 20 hours before she was discovered. So what occurred during that time?
Yep.
It was a priority 3 job, not a priority 2. So there's 3 in, the 5 minutes I've sat here and read that.
Yeah. It
I
doesn't-
expect I had some other knowledge of the job itself, because I do receive all the sit reps and things. I don't know if I'd read something, but just based on that alone tells me they're very different jobs.
Right. But a priority 2 job is a point of distinction, but that is a more serious job, isn't it, in terms of the police prioritisation system?
Correct.
Right. And as we've established, this was the only priority 2 job in the Ballina command from 6:58 to 7:41 p.m. You would have been aware of that at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So a delay to a priority 2 job is of great concern relative to a delay to a priority 3 job, other things being equal.
Yes.
Right. Now, and the matters that you've just canvassed, are they the reasons why you say that this matter is, quote, vastly different? That's in the last paragraph there. You say, given the matters did not fall directly into a critical incident category, the subjective considerations required for, quote, other grounds for considering it's in the public interest should not subsequently be compared to a vastly different matter. Do you see that? That those are the matters that you say make it vastly different, or is there something else?
Well, I imagine there were perhaps some other things, such as regional New South Wales versus the metro, availability of resources within the metro, but without more time to digest all of the information, other than showing me this, I don't know what else was on my mind at the time that I wrote the report 2 years ago.
All right. You're doing your best to assist us with your thinking at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. Now let's come, finally, if we can, we'll go back to tab 52, which is Exhibit 5. Probably Exhibit 5. This is the P1179 form. Just wait till that's come up. So this is the form that commences. This is a record of the decision of Region Commander in considering declaring the following incident a critical incident under Section 111 of the LEC Act. Can I just suggest that, given your evidence today, it is apparent that you gave consideration, in fact you gave deep consideration to whether or not this matter should be called the Ballina incident should be called a critical incident. Do you agree?
Yes.
And in light of that, and in the interests of transparency and good record keeping, Part 3, the non-declaration and the reasons for your decision ought to have been completed. Do you accept that?
Yes.
And there's a multiplicity of benefits, including that you'd have that document here today to rely upon in giving your evidence. Might have made this afternoon a bit quicker. It's not a criticism of you. Do you think there's a need for greater training for region commanders in relation to the benefits of completing that part of the form?
Well, any additional training is always going to be beneficial. I didn't turn my mind to the form.
Understand that. But going forward, there'll be heaps of other superintendents in your position who are acting up and who may not understand this requirement to set out their thinking when they don't declare, but they've actually given the matter anxious consideration. So do you agree that there is benefit in providing training to, yes, right, into... Finish with that one, it's a bit random. Are there any other systems issues, because that is a particular concern for the Commission, systems issues or areas for agency improvement that you think are highlighted by the circumstances of this tragic matter?
None that come to my mind on the spot.
I'm just going to finish with a very curious question. Are you aware of any systems that officers can use to check the existence of interstate warrants?
I couldn't say with absolute accuracy, but I believe that when we ask for a CNI check on radio, they will tell you whether there is an interstate warrant or not.
Okay. Right, thank you for that assistance. Nothing further, Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gollan, do you have questions?
Yes, can I ask the Commissioner to pull up document barcode 8605813, please?
Do we have a tab number for that from those assisting the Commission?
Sorry.
Do you remember?
It was one of the documents that my learned friend showed. It was about the hand back document.
Ah, okay. Yep. So it'll be tab 87.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know.
25C.
I don't know.
Barcode 811 is the commencement of that document, and the substance is at 813.
87. Yeah.
Just while it's been put up, Madam Chapman, it seems to me that a hand over and a hand back is not just what's necessarily current, but a reflection upon what might have happened whilst that person was absent from the role, correct?
Correct.
And that whether you classify this as a critical incident or whether or not you classify it as a homicide, in simpliciter, it's a matter of significance for a community, for the local area commander, the assistant commissioner and all others involved in the chain of command to be aware of.
Correct.
And in those circumstances, it would seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but really what you're doing with the hand back is you bring them up to speed with things that they may have otherwise been aware of if they were still occupying the role.
Yes.
Now, if I can just have you have a look at this document, the barcode 8605813,
Yes.
and you'll see there's a series of bullet points, and then there's the third last paragraph. I deemed it not to be a critical incident. I take from that that you turned your mind to it.
Yes.
And then the narrative that follows, that speaks of certain tasks and things that were undertaken or pursued, including talking to Superintendent Tanner, also following up with the investigators that they covered across everything that had happened at the time.
Yes.
I take it that that's something that you were, that you desired, and that was to be put fully in the picture. You wanted to know everything that had happened
Yes.
before you'd made any decision You want to know where you were, what you were doing, the CADs being considered, Tanner talking to his troops, things of that nature. Now, that can be taken down now. I understood from the Godfrey that we had a look at, which I don't need to pull back up, but you set out certain parts of the guidelines that come from section 110 of the LEC Act.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And then you had reference to 111 being the catch-all, as it were, section 111, subsection 1, little b, the Commissioner of Police has other grounds for considering that it's in the public interest to do so. And you disgorged the reader of that by saying that you'd considered it but come to a different conclusion, correct?
Yes.
Now, I just want, if I may, have you consider section 111(1)(a). See, 110 are the features of a critical incident. They're the things that you go looking for, as it were. 111(1)(b) is that even if you don't find those features, if it's a matter of public interest, you might exercise your discretion to have it classified as a critical incident. 111(1)(a) reads in these terms: the Commissioner of Police may, verbally or in writing, declare an incident to be a critical incident for the purposes of this part if, little a, the Commissioner of Police becomes aware that an incident involving a member of the New South Wales Police Force has occurred that exhibits the features of a critical incident set out in section 110, or the Commissioner of Police has other grounds for considering that it's in the public interest to do so. The chapeau, as it were, to that section grants the Commissioner of Police a discretion that they may determine it. Did you understand that you had a discretion?
Yes.
And did you understand that you were exercising a discretion?
Yes.
And did you understand to do that conscionably that you needed all of the information that you'd sought from Tanner and others?
Yes.
And having acquired all of that material, you exercised that discretion?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Anything from you, Mr. Smart? No. Is there anything further for this witness?
Thank you,
Can
Commissioner.
Superintendent Chapman be released apart from the matters that she was going to provide to us on follow-up? We can send an email of that to your lawyers.
There is just one matter that is presently outstanding that it might be prudent just to wait until we receive that further information before you formally excuse Superintendent Chapman.
That sounds sensible. We'll just wait to get the last few documents from you, Superintendent Chapman, and then we can make a decision about whether you're excused from your summons, but otherwise we'll leave the summons in place for the moment. Once we've made a decision about that, we'll let your lawyers know and they'll be able to let you know. If unexpectedly you're required to come back, I think we could almost certainly arrange to do that by an audio-visual
Absolutely.
link. So there wouldn't be a need to come back to Sydney to do it. All right. Well, thank you everyone very much for their attendance. We'll resume at 10 o'clock on Monday unless there was anything else.
No, there's nothing else. Thank you, Commissioner.